Since being elected to office 2 years ago, Congressman Paul Hodes has sent out over 1 million pieces of mail at taxpayer expense, promoting himself and his own re-election. He spent over $250,000 of taxpayer money to do this, and he's funneled money from the Treasury, from taxpayers, to the New Hampshire Democratic Party. Perhaps most disturbingly of all of this has been legal. But just because it's legal doesn't make it right. I wasn't the first to criticize Paul Hodes for abusing the Congressional Franking Privilege. I won't be the last. But I am the first to offer a concrete solution. I have a 3-step plan, 3 simple reforms that will preserve the right of the people to communicate with their government while ending the abuse of the Congressional Franking Privilege. The first step is to prevent the transfer of tax dollars to political organizations and make members of Congress who do it personally responsible for reimbursing the Treasury for those taxpayer dollars. The second step is to prevent unsolicited mass mailings. If you, as a constituent, write or call your congressman with a question or a concern, you deserve to have an answer and find out where that member of Congress stands on the issue. But Congress should not use the franking privilege as open season to send out their political message to the voters of New Hampshire. And finally, the simplest and perhaps the most effective reform that we can pass is to simply put a price tag on these pieces of mail. Right now, the law requires that you say that it's a taxpayer expense, but you don't have to say how much it costs. So if we require that every member of Congress put the price of their political mail on the mail they send to the people of New Hampshire, that will discourage members of Congress when voters get sticker shock in the mailbox. 3 simple reforms to prevent Congress from ever abusing this privilege again. I think this is should be a non-controversial and a nonpartisan step. 3 simple reforms to win back the public trust and prevent abuse of the franking privilege forever. Thank you.
I'm sorry, can you just repeat the first step? I missed that.
The first step is to simply prohibit any tax dollars from going to political organizations. Paul Hodes and Carol Shea Porter each paid the New Hampshire Democratic Party $5,000 for their voter file. And I think this is highly improper. In fact, the Democrats, when they took over at the State House, changed state law so that they could use the voter file as a fundraising tool. This is improper. We need to change law at the state level. I'm running for Congress. I think we can, at the federal level, prevent members of Congress from using their official campaign, their official office funds from supplementing the coffers of the New Hampshire Democratic Party, the New Hampshire Republican Party, any political organization. Yeah.
How do you respond to the argument that these mail-ins are approved by a bipartisan congressional committee, and by that default, they're fine, as long as they go through this committee?
Yeah, members of Congress, Republicans and Democrats, are preserving their own privileges. It's not a surprise that people down in Washington are going to protect the advantages of incumbency. That doesn't make it right. We need to change the system. And not only will I push for this if elected to Congress, I'll abide by it. Whether or not the rest of Congress is prohibited from sending out unsolicited mass mailings or putting the price tag on what they send to taxpayers, I'll abide by these. And I think that's very important. Of course, I would never use any of my official taxpayer money that's supposed to be funding the office to supplement the New Hampshire Republican or Democratic Party.
Can you talk just a little bit more about why you're running for office?
Sure. I think Congress is broken, and we need to get it back to its core priorities. My priorities are a strong national defense, secure borders, and an economy free from the taxes, mandates, and overregulation that have brought us to the brink of recession. I saw a void here in the Republican Party. I didn't see any candidates standing up for free market principles and personal freedom. I didn't see a candidate standing up for open and accountable government that meets its real priorities and doesn't try to buy our vote with earmarks and taxpayer-funded mail.
How is this an abuse of privilege if it's perfectly legal?
Well, just because it's legal doesn't make it right. We've seen a lot of people upset at using over $250,000 for something that's been on the books for a while and it's been kind of used here and there. Charlie Bass spent, I think, $13,000 on his newsletters. And Paul Hodes, during a similar period, spent $130,000, so 10 times the rate. So you find this loophole in the franking privilege that lets you send out unsolicited mail, and you abuse it to its breaking point. Yes, it's legal, but just because it's legal doesn't make it right. We need to change the system.
And how likely are you to be successful if you get elected to Congress?
Well, we'll see on one vote, and there's some good votes down there. Two of my ideas are actually being pushed by other members of Congress. Ray LaHood has the idea to prohibit unsolicited mass mailings. He introduced that back in June of 2007, and it's been sitting on a shelf for a year. And Representative Jeff Flake, I believe, has proposed the sticker price idea to make sure you put the price of these mailings on these mailings and let voters know exactly how much of their money you're spending. So I would be another voice to that effort, and we do it one vote at a time. And I think we've seen the reaction that Paul Hodes' abuse of the franking privilege has caused here in New Hampshire. I mean, you get everybody from the Union Leader to the Keene Sentinel criticizing you, you've probably gone over the line.